Hi, I'm Pasma. I'm the volunteer with AIM, Asia Institute of Mentoring. I'm your chair for this evening. We have been providing some weekly programs through our three pillars: crisis management, career resilience, and personal well being. Having industry experts, veterans, panelists, and coalition partners to provide meaningful and insightful programs in these challenging times. So do join us in our mentoring programs, weekly webinars, and fire chats. And join us if you wish to become a mentor, a mentee, or a volunteer. Just a few housekeeping rules. You'll be on a listen mode, so stay comfortable and enjoy the session with us. You'll be able to see us, but we can't see you nor hear you. But that's okay, as long as you can hear us. We've got some very good something coming up. And sign kindly support us through your thumbs and your claps or ones and twos in your chat box. This is a recorded session and it will be made available within a week. So keep your questions coming and we'll answer them towards the end from my colleague who will be answering Zenwei, and we'll be answering your queries most of the time. Please post your questions or testimonials or even your feedback. Do select panelists and attendees if you like everyone to see your comments. Now coming to this topic, how to use stories to effortlessly motivate decisions and actions. Can I have a show of thumbs how often we tell stories? Do you know the storytelling has been part and parcel of our lives, from our grandparents to our family members to anyone and everybody we meet? Now, who is selling all these stories? Practically each and every one of us. But then, how essential is it in our business? How are we going to motivate, to captivate audience, to get the right attention or to engage stakeholders? Well, we've got the right person for you because this person, he's running a business out of storytelling. He's the founder of Storybox. He was a medical sales professional and he has accumulated a wealth of knowledge, training sales leaders to great heights. His genuine stories to his prospectus have helped him to clinch many achievements and targets. And without further ado, let me welcome David King for his storytelling session on how to effortlessly motivate decisions and actions in yourself and in your business. David King, please.
Thank you so much, Pasma. Hey, everybody. It's such a privilege to be able to serve you today. And I am very sure that you'll be able to take back something of so much value that you start to see how you're able to move the things around you in your favor. Now, before we start, I just want to get an idea and to be sure that everybody can hear me. So if you can hear me, I want you to go into the group chat right now and type a capital Y that stands for yes. All right, go to the chat room right now and type a capital Y so that I know that you can hear me before I start. All right, fantastic. Fantastic. Now, the next thing I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to hit in the group chat right now by typing in what is your profession, all right, in a fastest, shortest way possible. Just tell me what do you do professionally, right? So that as I'm teaching today, I'll be able to cater it to make it relevant for you. Okay, so we have Wagma, Julian, you're a coach, all right? So Murphy, you're an engineer, fantastic. Amanda, you are technical writer, wow, amazing. All right, Faith, you're an educator. Judith, you're an educator as well. MJ, you are a mentor and a coach. What about the rest of you? All right, Lorna, you're a nurse, fantastic, right? Isaac, you're an educator. So we have a lot of educators here today. And okay, Hok Chin Chiu, you are an accountant. All right, so fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, guys. I'm going to make this as relevant to you as possible for today. Right, so I think everybody will agree with me, right? One thing that happened at the start of this year was COVID, right? And you know that COVID has disrupted for many of us who are coaches or running a business, right? Because traditional methods of sales do not work anymore and we have to reinvent ourselves and utilize social media for selling, for branding, and for promoting our stuff. And what we're going to be learning today will definitely help you in that area if you are using social media. But that being said, I think every one of us can agree that with this influx of and free access into the internet, information and knowledge is vast. Every single day we are inundated with notifications, with emails, with with messages, and it's just so much information out there. So with so much noise, right? How do we make our message stick, right? That's what I want you to achieve at the end of today, right? To know how to make your message stick, and not only just stick, but work in your favor. Now, I believe every one of you will agree here, right? That we want people to remember us, right, in our business, or whether you are, I noticed that some of you are like engineers or working in a corporate environment, you want to be remembered. But unfortunately, because there are so many people doing the same thing, you are categorized like everybody else. I know I hate that, right? And that's why when I jumped into this industry, 6 months into it, I created a niche for myself in storytelling. Now, the next thing is this. Apart from people remembering you, you also want to be engaged. Am I right? And after being engaged, you want to be paid for what you enjoy doing. And oftentimes it is because the reason why we don't experience all these three things is because we are being seen as common. And so the thing I want you to remember is that whatever is common always gets forgotten. Now, I just remember there are a few things that I wanted to address with you before we start today. And the first thing is, I'd like everybody to participate. There are different parts of today's session that require you to participate. And this participation is really going to help you. Okay, that's number one. Right. Number two is think about some questions that you like to ask me at the end of today's session. If there's any, right, write them down and make sure that you ask me those questions. And number three, be sure to write notes. Be sure to write notes, okay? And then one last thing is I've got a special bonus for every single one of you here who joined today's session, right? If you stay right all the way to the end, I've got something special just for you, okay? So for those of you who just joined in or have already joined in since we started, that's something specially for you. So coming back to this, whatever is common always gets forgotten, all right? Or whatever is common always gets unnoticed. That's why we have to find a way to make ourselves uncommon, all right? We have to find a way to make ourselves uncommon. And it's a lot bigger than what we think. Being uncommon is more than just about ourselves. It's more about the people that we serve. So let's do a very quick experiment over here. But I understand for Pathma, we will not be able to see everybody's
No.
so that means we cannot do this experiment.
Experiment, yeah.
All right, so maybe I can just share with you this experiment that is often done with people that can see each other, right? I did it among a class of 50 educators, and what I told them to do was to draw a cake for the one beside them, right? And I gave them only 30 seconds to draw that cake. But here's the thing, right? After 30 seconds, I told them to all raise their hands, right? And to show everybody in the room what cake they drew. And Pahma, you did this together with us.
Yes.
Right?
I enjoy this. Guys, you should try this thing. You will never go wrong with this. There's something else coming up immediately after drawing the cake.
Right.
Okay.
So when everybody lifted up their cake, the next instruction to them was, if you had asked the person beside you what cake they wanted before you drew, put your hand down. Right. And this was what surprised me. More than 90% of educators who's supposed to be the ones who are most people-centered, right, had their cakes up. So what does this mean? Even with the best of intentions, all of us tend to do things from our perspective, right? That is why we're not getting the responses that we want, okay? And you know what? If you have done this, if you've been doing this, don't blame yourself for it, because even the smartest of us have failed. Now, in the early 1960s, right, NASA wanted to make space livable for men. And the first few astronauts were all men, right? And so one of the things that they wanted to create was something that helped them relieve their bladder while they're in space. So they improvise on something that on a condom, basically. So this is not a spaceship that you see over here, as a condom, and it's a tube that's connected at the end of it, linking to a bag. All right. So this essentially helps the astronauts relieve themselves in space. And this, after perfecting this device, they created it in 3 different sizes, because we know that it comes in 3 different sizes, right? So small, medium, and large. So they went to all the men and say, hey guys, you know what? We want you to try the size that fits you best so that we can have it ready for you when you travel to space. And guess what, guys? When NASA asked for the results, they found it very peculiar that the results were inaccurate. And you know what gave that out? It was because all the men only went to one size. Can you guys make a guess what size that was? I'd like you to hit it in the chat room right now by telling me which size do you think the man chose, right? The man who tried on the the condom-like device chose. Yeah, absolutely right. They chose large because their ego will not allow them to choose anything smaller than large. Now, I want you to see that NASA got it wrong the first time around. Just like how many of the educators, an example of the educators I shared with you just now, didn't ask the people that they were drawing the cake for what cake they wanted. Therefore, they didn't get the response they want. Okay, so NASA make a minor tweak after knowing that this is an issue with an ego, with their ego, right? And so they relabeled this to L, XL, and XXL. And guess what, guys? This time the results were accurate. NASA just make a slight change, right, to see a significant difference in the way people respond to you. So really differentiating ourselves from the market is a lot more than just doing something about ourselves. It is a lot to do with the knowing the ones that we are serving. So this is something I'd like you to write down. Okay, it's a principle in storytelling, and that is what doesn't relate always gets repelled. Okay, what doesn't relate always gets repelled. So now then comes the question, what then happens if we're able to relate? Let me give you some examples. All right. So earlier this year, we ran a program to teach financial consultants, real estate, and solopreneurs how to write, how to create, how to use storytelling to create content. And within a short span of time, many of them who saw through the whole process saw between 100 to 800% in social media engagement in their posts. And many of them walk away with sales leads, which is pretty amazing. Now, another one of my students, the last time when he came up to me, he's a very technical individual, and he struggled communicating his products and services to his target market because they were all decision makers, and they couldn't really understand him or relate to him when he spoke a lot of technical jargons. So after going through a coaching program with me, I shared with him how to use storytelling strategies and being able to relate with his messages. Guess what, guys? From not being able to generate sales to generating 8 figures worth of sales just by a simple change. All right. So here are some other examples with different individuals who have gone through, or rather, use created program or created their approaches in a way that relate. All right. So whenever it relates, you always get responses. Whenever it doesn't relate, it always gets repelled. All right. So here are some examples again. So today's agenda, guys, is very simple, right? I want you to continue doing what you love. And everybody here can agree that it's been difficult. But I want to be able to help you differentiate yourself from the market. I want to help you be able to be remembered, engaged, and paid for what you enjoy doing and have the capability of impacting somebody's life. All right. So this is what I need from you. If I'm able to show you how to do this, will you promise to take action? All right. This is the biggest challenge I see in most sessions where I teach, right? People go like, oh, this is very good, but then there's no action being taken, right? So will you promise to take action if I show you how to do it? If you promise, I'd like to hit a capital P in the chat room right now, okay? Just to let me know that you are committing to learning and committing to take action, all right? That's all I ask from you. Just take action, all right? All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, guys, for that commitment. And so that gives me the free rein and the motivation to continue teaching you guys. So a little bit about myself. I am turning 40 very soon. I'm most often mistaken as 24. I'm married with one wife. I've got two girls, 10 and 12. We kind of adopted them when their father passed on about 2 years ago, and their father was my wife's brother. And we also have another daughter. She's 7.5 years old. She's a golden retriever, and she's not in this picture right now. All right. So over the past 5 years, I've gone into companies, organizations, and agencies to teach them how to utilize the power of storytelling to motivate action in their favor, whether they're marketers, whether they're sales professionals, or whether they just service and support staff. There is a place for storytelling storytelling to influence action in all these different areas. And in the recent time, I was invited to speak on a global stage to share about how to use storytelling to motivate action among um, giants like Harvard and WeWork and companies like this. And if you look at a picture in Chinese, I was the only wonton among the French fries, right? I was the only wonton in among the French fries, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity. And this was the feedback I got from the organizers, and that is they and I don't say this to put a feather on my cap. I say this to encourage you and to tell you that whatever I'm going to share today is the very same things that has helped me stood out when I do the things that I do, right? And I was voted the best speaker among these awesome speakers that I had the opportunity to serve with because I use a lot of stories. And what the organizer, which is Marco, he shared with me was when he went back home that same day when I did the web the session, right? There was a recorded session. He actually rewatched it because he was so moved by it. All right. So what I experienced is something I would like you to experience as well, because I want you to know, right, in a market or in a place where it's so crowded, you want to do something intentional to make sure that you are remembered. All right, so that you are remembered. Okay, so if the last slide about me, so if we have not connected on social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, my handle is Story Selling Speaker. Please go ahead and connect with me. Drop me a text message. Tell me where we've met before, and I'd love to carry the conversation further with you. All right, guys. So let's jump right into the art of storytelling proper. All right. So, what if there was a way to effortlessly activate the brain, right? What if there was a tool that could effortlessly activate the brain? And of course, today it is because of storytelling, we know that it is storytelling. But I want to tell you why. Now, there was a study done between a storyteller and the audience, right? There was some devices to detect the brain activity when a storyteller was telling his story. So there were different parts of his brain that was firing neurons as if he was reliving the moment. Like if he was telling a story about his growing up years or when he was conversing with his wife, right? There will be different parts of his brain that will fire neurons as if he was reliving that same moment in time. But here's the amazing thing. The brain activity of the listeners mirrored that of the storytellers exactly, meaning that the neurons were firing at exactly the same places as the storyteller. Now, when you think about that for a moment, in sales, we know that excuse me, in connecting with somebody, we mirror their body language, right? But imagine that this is happening on a biological level. Essentially, if you are a speaker and you are speaking in a room, whether it's 550, 500, or 5,000, if you use storytelling correctly, it is able to connect the mind of all the 5,000 people into one single thought. Imagine how powerful is that. Imagine how you can use that in your favor. Imagine how that can work for you. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it today. So, um, let's talk a little bit about analogies and metaphors for a minute, because storytelling is built upon this idea. Now, Art Markman said this: the best way to help people learn something new or complex is with the use of analogy or a metaphor, right? And so the reason why it works is because there are multiple common points between two different subjects, the simple and the difficult. So meaning if you want somebody to understand something difficult, you get them to you get them to relate it to something they already know, right? So let me give you an example right now. Over here you see a picture of something that looks like a stocking, right? But actually what it is a compression socks or compression stocking. And very often this is being used to promote blood circulation. Now, for those of you who are not in the medical industry, you would be thinking, okay, so how does this promote blood circulation? So I'm going to teach you exactly how it does it. And I believe after teaching you today, you will be able to remember it for life. Now, I do not know about you guys, but when I was growing up, I was very mischievous. I would often go to the market downstairs and buy these fishes, small little fishes. Don't judge me, okay? I was only 7 years old, right? I'll buy these little fishes, and then what I would do is I will stuff them into this little pipe, right? And then I will put it into the tap, turn on the tap, right? And at the end of the pipe, I would squeeze it a little bit so that the velocity of water flows out, right? And it flows out at a higher velocity, right? And you can see the fishes just being spat out of the of this tube, right? In a very uh, fast way, right? And it was very exhilarating and thrilling for me. So I kind of do it a few different times. Now, similarly, right, as how the velocity of water increases when I constrict this rubber hose, it is the same way how your blood flow increases when you wear a pressure stockings. It constrict your vein, your vessels. I won't go into the detail, right? But particularly your vein doesn't flow as well as your arteries. All right, hence you need assistance like the socks. And when do you use this? You use this in long flights. All right. So with that image in mind, can you see how this pressure socks works? Right. If you can see how this pressure socks works, and this analogy has helped you understand how this pressure socks work. Can you hear in the chat room right now a capital yes, meaning yes? Now you can see how this pressure socks works. Can you hear it in the chat room right now? Right, so many of you can now see it, right? And why? Because I use the power of analogy. So now, after knowing this analogy and the things that I've explained to you, there is a high possibility that a percentage of you now will use a pressure stocking when you go for long distance flight, right? Because you want your blood to circulate, and you know that when bloods don't circulate, it forms clots. And what happens then is sometimes patients who get, or individuals who get blood clots in their leg, end up having pulmonary embolism, meaning that the blood clot gets stuck in your pulmonary artery, and then within seconds you just pass away. So to avoid this, even for my wife, after explaining it to her, she started wearing these pressure stockings. So now let's talk a little bit about some things that are common here, right? Number one is the long tube-like structure resembles the 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 vein that's inside your leg, so it's easy for you to visualize, right? The second thing is compression, right? Both have equal the same analogy, right? You are familiar with the rubber hose, you're not so familiar with the pressure stocking, but when I share with you that when I compress the rubber hose, the velocity of water increases, then you can understand how the velocity of blood increases in your vein when you use a pressure stocking, right? And lastly, yeah, tube-like structure. So that's a repeated word there. And high pressure output. So this is how analogies and metaphors help with understanding things and influence action. But stories, on the other hand, is a higher form of analogy and metaphor that comprises of multiple common factors with the subject and more. That's why a story is so powerful, because there are so many common related points that people can relate to. And in that story, they can see themselves, they can see how they can overcome a certain challenge, or they can see how the actions they need to take based on the story that's being told. Now, let me just continue to share with you so it makes sense to you, all right? So there are three different criteria that make a story great. Okay, you might just want to write this down, or maybe draw it or illustrate it on your paper. All right, number one is a story is good if only people can see the story being told. Okay, they can see the story, right? It doesn't matter if it's like a movie or a verbal story, but they need to be able to see it. The amazing thing about it is that our prefrontal cortex, which is the front here, is able to create images of the future or the present that allows us to experience the emotions before we actually reach there. Okay, so that is the part that helps us see. Okay, the next thing is this: feel. All right, the story must be able to help your audience feel. Okay, the third thing is the story must be able to show your audience what to do. All right, the story must be able to show the audience what to do. When you achieve these three different criteria, what you have is there will be a willing action in your favor. All right, the audience will take willing action in your favor. So what's the difference between action in your favor and willing action? Is the keyword willing. When people are willing to do it, they usually overdo it, and that's exactly what you want. So now in in reputable online publishing sites, you can see how stories are starting to get traction. And one of the articles I want to show you is what Jeff Bezos did. So he banned PowerPoint in meetings, right? because he didn't want his leaders to hide behind the PowerPoint slides. He wanted his leaders to share in narratives so that the people who are listening to what he's saying will know how to respond to his sharing, to their sharing, right? And he understands that storytelling have a powerful way of influencing action. That is why he's banned PowerPoint slides. Pretty cool, huh? So if you're wondering right now to yourself, okay, David, this is all good, right? And it's the opinion of Jeff Bezos and your own experience. Is there something really concrete that has really worked, right? And is storytelling really just fluff or is it fantastic? Now, I'm glad you thought about that, and it's a question that's commonly asked. So I want to show you this. This individual's name is Rob Walker, right? He's a journalist and he wanted to prove the power of storytelling. So what he did was he went on eBay and he bought this horse's head. All right, he bought it at 99 cents. Right, to test the concept of storytelling, he got a writer to write a story to back this horse's head. Right, to write anything about a horse's head, something fictitious. And then after the story was written, he put it back out on eBay. All right, to sell it. And now I want everybody to guess how much did Rob Walker manage to sell this horse's head for? All right. I want you to make a guess how much did Rob Walker manage to sell this horse's head for? All right. I'd like to hit it in the chat room by telling me what you think was the selling price of this horse's head. All right, so Murphy says 999. Wow, okay. Amanda, you said 599. Alvin, 500. Okay, so Judith, you're a bit more realistic, right? $10.99. So Hawk Chin Cho, you said 999. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? Come on. Make a wild guess. How much did he manage to sell this horse's head for? All right, so Rob Walker actually managed to sell it for $62.95. Now, while this may not seem like a very high price, right? But I want you to think about the multiplication factor it added onto the horse before the story was put together for the horse. It is almost 6,200% increase. Now, has the horse's head changed? No, right? But what has changed since he's bought the horse's head? It is the story that was added to the horse. Now, in sales, there is this word called value distortion, and you can write that word down, value distortion. And there is always a competition between. You notice that when there's something to be sold, there's always a competition between the value and the price, right? And the moment the customer talks about price, it's priced too high, right? The first thing you should do is to find a way to deviate away from the price to the value, right? Because when you talk about the value, you're able to distort the value. And the way to distort it is using a story, okay? But if you talk about price, the only way to win the deal is to be the cheapest in the market. And we know that good quality stuff don't often come cheap. All right. So that's why storytelling is so powerful. You can see in this example over here because it is distorted the value of the horse's head from 99 cents to $62.95, a close to 6,200% increase in its original value. Now you see this concept of storytelling being amplified in Disney cartoons, right? On Moana, right? Moana's a story about finding your purpose, finding your calling in your dream, right? And why Disney could have just said, children, find your calling in your dream. But why did they have to build it into a 1 hour to 2 hour story, right? Pursuit of happiness, right? Or the passion of Christ. Every single one of these stories have a message to tell us. And so many times they don't say you have to do something about it. And yet, after watching these shows, we feel an urge to do something about our lives. One thing I want you guys to take note of also is this: people don't like to be told, they like to be influenced. That's another reason why you will want to tell a story or use the principles of story in your sales, your marketing, and the way you influence action between different stakeholders within your company. So let's talk about 3 different criteria of a great story. And this is the part that you like to write down as well. We are halfway through right now, just in case you're wondering, okay? So there are 3 different parts. It paints a picture, which is something we mentioned just now. You must be able to see, right? It must be emotionally relatable, which means the people must be able to feel, right? It has to have a clear through line where people need to know what action to take. All right, so let's talk about picture first. I want everybody to think of a handphone. Okay, I want everybody to think of a handphone. Thought about it already? Okay. Now I want everybody to tell me, right, in the chat room, do you see a picture of a handphone or do you see the words handphone, right? If you see a picture, I want you to hit in the chat room a capital P. But if you see words, I want you to hit in the chat room a capital W. Okay, do that right now. All right, so fantastic. Most of you, if you look in the chat room right now, right, most of you said you saw a picture. Now, what does that tell us about our brain? What it tells us is our brain converts information into pictures, right? That is why facts, figures, and numbers often do not work because they don't translate into pictures, right? And or it leaves to the audience the free rein in creating the picture that makes sense to them, right? But for most of us, right, in fact, majority of us, what we do is we convert information into pictures, right? And so if we are not aligned with the way the brain works, which is to convert information to pictures, then there is no way of getting people to remember, because if they cannot see, they cannot remember. All right, which comes back to my point just now about neural coupling. All right, so coming to the next point. So I'm hearing a little bit of feedback right now. So if everybody could check your if you're not muted, please go ahead and mute it so that your background noise doesn't disrupt anybody. All right. So the second point is emotionally relatable. Your stories need to be emotionally relatable, because people don't remember what you said. They always remember how you made them feel. This was a phrase that was spoken by Maya Angelou, a very good friend um, of Oprah Winfrey. Now, the other thing that the other phrase that I remember very clearly was being shared by this author who wrote Who Moved My Cheese, Dr. Spencer. He says that people do not buy products. People buy the experiences that come with the products. Okay, so your stories need to be emotionally relatable. So what does it mean to create a story that's emotionally relatable? So let me give you a very quick example right now by showing you a few different avatars. Now, to create something that's emotionally relatable, whether it's a message or a message type of story, maybe it's a video type of content, maybe it's an article, right? The first thing you need to always ask yourself is, what's important to the ones I'm serving? What is the thing that's important to the ones I'm serving, right? So if it's a businessman, one of the things that could be important to them is fear that they will have to lay off people during this COVID period of time, right? The other one is, if it's for parents, right, they may fear that they're not able to cope with working from home with their children, right? Solopreneurs fear that their business might not tide through the COVID-19 situation, and so on and so forth. So I'd like to ask you guys now, for whoever that you all are serving, right, what is important to the market you serve? If you're able to identify, great. But if not, it's worth spending that time. Because as the example I shared with you just now with NASA, right? If NASA could have made a mistake, so can we. But you notice that just a slight change in the way they approach their market, just by simply asking what is important to them, they had the response that they wanted. Okay. So emotionally related content, message, article, video always starts by asking, why should this be, what's important to my market, or why should my market care about what I have to say? All right. That's a great starting point to creating a compelling and emotionally connecting story. Again, what doesn't relate always gets repelled, or what doesn't relate always gets repelled. Last but not least, it has to have a clear through line. Now, have you ever heard of people telling stories where, in Chinese we call this chong hei, right, which is very, very long-winded, right? Because people, when people tell stories, the points all don't interconnect, and as a listener, you just get very confused. you do not know what this person is talking about, essentially you do not know how to respond. All right, so I'm going to illustrate by showing you this video right now. It's a segment from the Ant-Man Part 2, right? And the bad guys were looking for Ant-Man, right? But they couldn't find Ant-Man, and they managed to find Ant-Man's friends, right? And after tying them down, um, the bad guys went to identify one of the friends and asked him, "Where is Scott Lang?" Right? Where is Scott Lang? So let's hear what his friend had to say. All right, check this out.
You know what? You're right. This isn't true serum. Because I don't feel anything. That was a lie. I do feel something. This is true serum.
There's no such thing.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna make this real easy for you, Luis.
Okay.
Where is Scott Lang?
I'll say that's complicated. Because when I first met Scotty, he was in a bad place. And I'm not talking about cell block D. His wife had just filed for divorce. And I was like, damn, homie, she dumped it when you're on lockup? And he was like, yeah, I know. I thought I was going to be with her forever. But now I'm all alone. And I was like, damn, homie, you know what? You got to chin up because you'll find a new partner. But you know what? I'm Luis. And he says, you know what? I'm Scotty. And we're going to be best friends.
Okay, hold on. I like a good story as much as the next person, but what in the hell does this have to do with where Scott Lang is?
I'm getting there.
You put a dime in him, you gotta let the whole song play out.
He'd like human jukebox.
Oh, my abuelita had a jukebox in the restaurant. Yeah, only played Morrissey. And if anybody ever complained, she'd be like, oh, no te gusta más? You know, Chicanos, we call them más. Then adios. What can I say? You know, we relate to his melancholy ballads, you know?
Lang.
Right. So anyway, Scotty gets out of jail and he starts working for Hank. That's when he met Hope. And Hope's all like, I want nothing to do with you. Look at my hairdo. I'm all business. And then Scotty's like, you know what, girl, my heart is all broken and I'll probably never find love again. But damn if I want to kiss you. But then you fast forward and they're all like into each other, right? And then Scotty's like, you know what? I can't tell you this, but I'm gonna go trash in the airport with Captain America. And then she said, I can't believe you split like that. Smell you later, dummy. So Scotty goes on house arrest and he won't admit it, but his heart is all like, damn, I thought Hope could have been my new true partner, but I blew it. But fate brought them back together, and then Hope's heart is all, I'm worried that I can't trust him and he's gonna screw up again and ruin everything. And then my heart is all like, that fancy raspberry filling represents the company's red, and we're days away from going out of business. Oh,
Out of business.
Days away.
damn, truth serum. And you know, I was trying to protect you guys. I swear to God. You know, I was trying to be a good boss, but we're broke. And the Carpenter's our last hope. And if we don't show up, we're done.
That's terrible bossing.
Damn, bro.
That's on me.
Hey,
Enough. I'm gonna ask you one more time. Where is Scott Lang?
I've been trying to tell you, he's in a tricky spot, emotionally speaking.
Emotionally speaking. Well, where is Scott Lang? Literally speaking.
Oh, the woods.
the woods? What do you mean, the woods?
The Muir Woods, Second Fire Road off the Panoramic Highway.
Do you guys like that video? Right. So you notice that while it is funny, if someone really tells you a story like that, you really do not know how to respond. Like the bad guys, right? After hearing his story, they do not know how to respond because there are so many points that don't connect. All right. So the three different things, right? Your audience need to be able to see, they need to be able to feel, they need to be able to know what to do. So these are three key criteria, right, in creating a story, right, that you like to write down and have it as something that you reflect on as you're creating that story. Always remember, a confused mind will never take action. All right, a confused mind will never take action. So you want to create that clarity for your audience when you're communicating your message. So let's look at what are some favorable response that you will get as a byproduct of achieving all that three that I just mentioned just now. So whenever I create content on social media, I always use this strategy. And this was an article, or rather a post that I created about people who are making fun of our prime minister with the use of circuit breaker or lockdown, right? And I wrote an article, not like a post, right, to explain why he would use that word instead of lockdown, right? And you can see over here, many people resonated with it. Just in a short period of time, there were 21 shares of this post. So as a content creator or a professional, right, whenever your content gets spread through sharing or high engagement, it's always publicity for you. All right. Another one, you can see over here when COVID just hit, right? Many there were many swabbers that were needed, and they were paid up to $3,800. That's insane, right? So a nurse wrote an article on her, or rather a post on her Facebook page, and it got crazy viral. So you can see over here this lady called Hong Yu Sim, right? I did search out for her when I discovered this, and you can see that this is a second post, right? A second post to because she anticipated that people were going to look for her already, right? And in just a short period of time, there were over 300 engagements, 20 shares, and 82 comments. Imagine what she got for her first post, which I didn't catch, and she took it down as well. All right, then the other another example that I had for myself personally was um, writing this story. So there are different ways to write a story. So this is one of the ways. It's using humor and punchline statements, right? So it's a conversation between my wife and I, looking for my wallet. Every guy should be able to relate to this, right? And my wife says, "Why you always forget your stuff?" So I meant like, I only remember what's important to me. Then my wife and like, "Really?" Then I went like, "Yeah, that's why I always remember where to find you and how to come back home." And I want everybody to make a guess, just a simple message like this on LinkedIn, excuse me. How many views do you think I got from this post? I'd like to hit in the chat room right now just to tell me, right, how many views do you think I got from this simple post? Now, I know some questions are coming in from the Q&A side. I will address them very shortly, okay? Because maybe as I'm teaching, some of the questions that you have will be addressed. All right, so let's see what you guys think, okay? So Murphy went like 100, Alvin 1,000, Judith 1,000, Carol. So these are all views, yeah? Am I right? Joanne Ong, 1,000 views. All right, so I'm in the interest of time, I'm going to show you exactly how many views I got, all right? I had close to 80,000 views from this simple post. Now, this post got me all across the globe. In fact, after this post, right, I had connections with people from Southeast Asia, even the US, right? And particularly in US, there was this individual that I spoke to that wanted to explore me working with him to create stories for his business. So that's the thing, right? How much will you guys pay for like 80,000 views? Probably a few hundred or few thousand, but I got this for free. And the technique I use is storytelling. All right. So now I'm going to jump straight into teaching you guys how to create your very own story, right? My framework is lacking an E there, so apologies for that. Now, ready? All right, make sure you have your pens and papers ready in front because I'm going to be teaching you exactly right now how to create your very own story. All right, so the storytelling methodology I'm going to teach you uses the acronym STORY, so it's easy to remember, okay? So S stands for situation, which is the norm. I want you to realize that the activator for any story is it must have a conflict. But before a conflict can happen, it must have a norm, right? So what is the norm? What is the current situation or the potential or current situation surrounding your story, your client story, or the audience story, right? Then the next thing is threat. What is the current or potential threat that will shake the current norm, right? And what is the impact that will lead to it? All right, what is the impact? What is the potential impact of this threat, right? This is the part that is very important because most people just talk about threat, current, and potential, but they don't talk about the impact. Now, impact is like the hot button. In sales, we learned that, and it's a term that's not used very often, but it's like the red button, the hot button. It should speak directly into the pain of the audience. All right, so you need to have the impact there, right? The current potential problem leading to an impact. All right, so if you're writing a content like on social media, this is the part where you want to ask a question, right? So let me give you an example, right? So like say if you're talking about COVID, right? So you can say like the setting, right? Everybody work was as normal, right? Everybody goes to office every single day, and life was normal when suddenly in January 2019 we were hit with the COVID-19 virus, and that shook businesses all around the world, right? And businesses suddenly have to think about how to quickly innovate to remain sustainable so that they can continue to generate sales, failing which their business may have to wind up. Okay, so the winding up is is the impact of the COVID-19 hitting businesses since it came in January 2019. All right. The next one is opportunity. So in opportunity, you want to paint a picture in the audience mind. What is a possible outcome that could be favorable to them despite being in this dire state, which is the threat? Okay. Many times businesses or individuals who are in a state of maybe like depression or frustration, or maybe not having cash flow, right? They don't understand how to raise funds or raise money for their business, right? So you come in as an expert, you come in and you tell them, you know what, I have this, you may be going through this difficult time in your business right now, but I have the solution for you. And this is what I've been doing for businesses, and I believe it can also work for you. So you're painting a picture in their mind. So remember, this is the part where they see, right? Threat is where they feel. Okay. So at which part do you tell them what steps to take? This is the next one, required actions. All right. So you tell them, this is the opportunity, but it's not going to come easy, right? If you want to achieve this outcome, these are the different steps that you need to take. All right, these are different steps that you take. If you look at movies, it's more or less like that, right? It's situation, threat, opportunity, require action. Sometimes there's a repeat of this cycle, but it's more or less always in this space, right? In this flow, in this structure, in this framework, right? And then lastly, after you're done with that, you open it up to your audience and you ask them how you give them an opportunity to respond to you, rather, excuse me. You give them an opportunity to respond to you. All right, so let me give you a very quick example right now in the simplest, most fun and easy to understand state. All right, so imagine that you are going to counsel your friend. Your friend had lost something that's very precious to her, right? And she's very anxious. She doesn't know what to do. And you remembered a time in your life where something that was very important to you was something that you lost as well, right? And it started off with this cat you see here in this picture, right? This cat was something that you wanted to buy for a very long time, but because it was so expensive, it took you about 2-3 years to save before you could buy her, right? And she cost $5,000, right? So one day, after bringing her back home for about 1 week, right? Everything seems fine until this day happened, right? You opened up your gate, and every morning you open your gate because you would clear your trash in the morning instead of the night before, but you forgot that your cat was at home and your cat could run out of the house with the gate open, but you totally forgot about that. So after you threw the trash, you turned behind, you saw the gate open, you realized that your cat could be missing. Your cat could have just run out of the house. So immediately you run to your house and you start calling out your cat's name. Mimi, Mimi, where are you, Mimi? Mimi, where are you? Right? And you went to every nook and cranny of your house and you discovered that Mimi is nowhere around. And your worst fear was realized because Mimi is now missing. Still hanging on to a thread of hope, you decided to create a poster to paste on different parts of your house or the void deck of your house to say that if somebody had found Mimi, you would pay them $5,000 for it. A week had passed, 2 weeks had passed, 3 weeks had passed. Still no sign of Mimi, no phone calls from anybody telling you if Mimi has been found. Your hope was almost dashed. And like every other morning, you would go out and clear your trash. And this time around, from the inside of your house, as you turn back to get ready to close the gate, Mimi appeared. And guess what? Mimi appeared with other Mimis. And to your delight, instead of one cat now, you have more than 10 cats. You took a sigh of relief and you took a reflection. And there are two different outcomes of your reflection. One is, if you ever have a pet, you console yourself, right? Or you talk to yourself, right? Keep your gate closed, right? Because you never know when your cat might run out. or the realization that you had is when life gets tough, don't be kanchong. Okay, so this is the message that likely you would tell your your friend. All right, friend, I've been there before, losing things that are important to me. But you know what I learned? That sometimes when the things I treasure slide away, don't be too quick to be afraid, because you know what? They might just come back. Okay? In this story, you realize that you 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 take her through a narrative by helping her see that you can relate to her because you've lost something precious to you as well. Right? She saw through your stories. She saw how you responded to them. Right? And therefore, after when you bring it to a close, it also influenced her to know what action she should take to overcome this fear or this sadness that she's experiencing. All right, so I'm going to show how this is applied on a more professional front. All right, um, a while ago, I we worked together with our client to create a video using this framework, and I'm going to show you that video very quickly. And I want you to ask yourself how you would feel if you were in as a target market. How would you feel? Okay, so check this out.
I feel bad for my mom that she wanted to provide me and my sister with good things, but she's unable. So the best she can do is she make them herself. I grew up in a less than ideal family. And growing up, I remember that my mom works every day. She will go out early in the morning and come home late at night most of the days. I know she's working and she's working hard to bring back the dough for the family. And even though like as children, I do not have a clear concept of money, but I do know that my family is struggling with finances due to their poor management habits and poor financial literacy. My mom works as a seamstress, so she's very good with her hands. So growing up, she will always make clothes for me and my sister. So every time, because she's very good at sewing clothes, my relatives will be very envious of us that, wow, all your clothes are handmade, so nice. But then, now that I think back, right, I think the reason why she made clothes for us all the time is because she probably couldn't afford to buy us clothes from the retail shops. Now looking back, right, I feel bad for my mom that she wanted to provide me and my sister with good things, but she's unable. So the best she can do is she make them herself. I also remember growing up, right, every time I need extra pocket money, I would be so terrified to ask my parents for it. Because asking them for extra allowance would mean that the tension will increase. They'll get frustrated. And all this stress and tension is transferred to me and my sister. It wasn't a nice feeling. Now that I look back, right, I think that all this could have been avoided if my parents knew how to manage their finances well. And that's the reason why now I'm very passionate to helping parents with children manage their finances so that they will never face lack and they will always have abundance and be able to provide for their loved ones.
So how do you feel after watching that story? Do you feel like you can relate to her better, right? If you were her client, would you feel more connected to her, right? So this is the feedback that we've been getting when different individuals see, because she's not like a shallow consultant who has never been through difficult times before, but she shared her difficult experiences and the reason why she's doing what she's doing and how she's helping people. And she's actually really good at what she does. Let me give you another example of somebody who used this framework. So this is another example of a financial consultant who was writing her article for the first time, and I took her through the storytelling framework. And this was the result that she got. She had more than 1,000 views on her first article. So pretty good, because you see over here, right? How do you tell if your social media post is doing well? It's about 10% to 15% of the network that you have. So let's say if you have 1,000, about 150 tells you that If you have 150 engagements, it tells you that it's pretty good. Now on LinkedIn, she's only about 300 and she has 95 engagements. So that tells you that her article touched many heartstrings and it really caught on, right? And gave her that exposure that she needed, as well as the exposure. I mean, using this strategy will also give you the exposure that you need as well for opportunities. All right, so I'm going to wind this down up very soon already. But is this helping you guys, right? I'd like to know in the chat room right now, just type in a capital Y if I'm helping you so far, being able to understand the power of storytelling and how it can work in your favor. If it's helping you, can you hit a capital Y in the chat room right now, please? All right, fantastic. So 7 different ways you can tell a story, right? So number 1 is you can use stories to communicate your brand, and that video that you saw just now is pretty much like a brand story. Another one is video content, right? Business presentations, email marketing, management proposals, content writing, and of course social media. There are many other ways you could tell a story, but these are the 7 key ways, or 7 critical ways, or most common ways that is being used right now during this period of time. But I know in your mind right now, you're probably to be thinking to yourself, David, you know what? I got so much information in my mind and there's so much about me. How do I know what story to choose? So it's kind of like this picture that you see over here, right? When we look into the night sky, the sky is filled with billions of stars, right? Which represents our experiences, our knowledge, our beliefs, our thoughts. So how do we pull out what's relevant? What's a good story to tell, right? Remember what we spoke about today? We always go back to the audience, right? The way we differentiate ourselves is not just about ourselves, but the audience that we serve. So like, for example, if I was a leader and I was teaching you about leadership or direction, right? I could choose the story about the Orion belt that you see over here and how in the olden days, although without a compass, fishermen were able to navigate themselves from one point to another just by looking at the Orion belt. All right. Now, this is the part where I'm going to be offering you guys something just specially for you guys because you stayed all the way to the end, right? I have to be honest that I have been very busy the past few weeks, and I'm going to be busy all the way to the end of the year. But I'm happy to open up 3 different slots to be able to serve any one of you who is at the junction of wanting to create your brand story or any form of story, whether it's a business pitch or a brand story that you want to use to communicate, or maybe it's a content story, right? It is a session, it's a 20-minute session for the first 3 who respond. It's valued at $500, no kidding, because I charge about $1,000 for a 1-hour consultation. But here's the thing, okay? I have a few criteria for it because I only want those who are very serious about it, okay? So the first criteria is this, right? You will need to put a $50 deposit. And how you do it is you either PayLah or PayNow, you transfer $50 to my account using my contact details over here. So on the left side, you see is a QR code for my WhatsApp. And over there, you'll be able to find the business number. Transfer $50 over there, right, as a deposit for the session, right? And on top of that, in that WhatsApp message, I'd like you to type your name, what you do, top 3 challenges, what you want to achieve, and the proof of deposit by screenshotting that, okay? Now, after you've sent me that, tomorrow, we will be scheduling the 20-minute session together with me. And after you've gone through the whole 20-minute session, you will get back your $50. Now, there are almost 50 of you online right now, so there's no way I can cheat you, all right? But I want somebody who is committed. So if you like to get the same results that you've seen myself get or some of my students get for themselves and their business, this is how I can help you, all right? It's a completely sponsored session worth $500. All you need to do is just to follow these simple steps, and then it's yours. Okay, guys, so this is just offered to you guys. For those who didn't participate today, will not have it. So if you want, screenshot it now because I'm not going to come back to this again, okay? 1, 2, 3, all right. So I'm going to bring this to a close right now, right? Today we covered at length the power of stories. When I showed you through the story of Rod Walker and how it distorted the value of a horse's head that nobody wants. At 99 cents, he sold it at 62.95. And I shared with you the three criteria, right, of storytelling. Being your stories must help people be able to see, must help people be able to feel, must help your audience be able to know what to do. Right? We also covered the 8-figure story framework using the acronyms STOR and Y. But why is storytelling so important? In fact, I will go even deeper to say it is every single one of our obligation. You know, if this is the first time we've met, you probably do not know much about me, so I'm going to share with you a little bit about me. I grew up in a Peranakan family. So what a Peranakan family is if you're not from Singapore, Peranakan family basically is Chinese who adopt the Malay culture in Singapore. So my grandparents would wear like sarong, we would speak in Malay. And growing up, my grandma was the one that took care of me most of the time while my parents were out working, right? And with the same hands she would use to cook delicious meal. I tell you, if you guys have ever tried Peranakan food before, you will know it's so good. Imagine having that every single day. And in the afternoon, I will still have Peranakan desserts, right? So it's really amazing. And with the same hands she would use to ease my tummy when I had abdominal pains. As a child, I always grew up with bloatedness in my abdomen, and she always will be there to ease my stomach. And she's always there to also pet me to sleep as a little child. She would sing this song that many of you may or may not know, but I'm just going to sing a very quick chorus. So she would sing, Burung kakak tua hingga di jendela, and she'd be petting me. Nenek sudah tua, giginya tinggal dua. Lechup, 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 la, lechup, 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 la, lechup, 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 la, burung kakak tua. And by the time she's done singing that song, I'll be fast asleep, right? And I always appreciated her love for me, and I thought that I could like enjoy that love for the rest of my life. And you know how things change when people get older. So one day when my grandma was cooking, and she's like a super cook in our house, right? She overcooked her dishes. Now, if you cook dishes every single day, right, you would know there's no way of continuously over burning it, because you know exactly when to turn off the fire or what kind of content or the mixture inside that will cause the burn. But she continuously burned that dish, and we didn't think much about it. We just put it at the side of our head. But what happened next really surprised us. So we had a phone call from our neighbor saying that they saw my grandma walking at the bottom of the apartment, and she seems like she's lost. She doesn't know how to come back home. And right now, many of you will probably be guessing that she has dementia. And yeah, that's exactly what we discovered the same evening when we brought her to see the doctor, and the doctor said that she has dementia. Now, if your loved one had a dementia, what would be your greatest fear? It would be that they forget you, isn't it? And that was my greatest fear. I was afraid that she would forget me. You know what? She was the only one that I was comfortable hugging when I grew up. Not even my parents, because of the love she gave me. And this was about 2006. So when about 2009 came, when I spoke to her, I would say like, Ma, what's my name? She'll go like, David. No, she wouldn't go like this, sorry. She'll go, John. I said, no. James, no. Peter, no. It's like she's calling the disciples of Jesus. Now, at some point, she'll say David. And I'll go like, yeah, that's correct. That's my name, right? But with each time I met up with her, it seemed like her memories slowly deteriorated. In 2011, when during Chinese New Year, when I went to her house, she at this point forgotten who I am and the people around her. She's like literally in a daze all day. But very often I would still go to her, give her a kiss and say, hello, mama, or mama, I love you, or happy Chinese New Year, mama. Then after that, I'll go into the bedroom, right, where I would sit and watch TV. So imagine this, I'm leaning against the wall, sitting on the bed, watching the television just across me. During that time, Bruce Lee is very popular, right? Or Jackie Chan movies. And suddenly, guess who came into the room? My grandma came into the room. She sat at the edge of the bed, and what was underneath the TV were chest drawers. So she sat at the edge of bed, she pulled out the first chest drawer and began playing with papers. And and I didn't think much about it because she often did that. All right. But what happened next blew my mind. She turned around, and on her hand, there was a red packet. And she said this, David, this is for you. Wait, what? She's supposed to have forgotten my name, right? She's supposed to have forgotten who I am. How is it possible that she could have called out my name? And you know what? As I reflected on what happened, I realized that she had a moment of sanity. And in that moment of sanity, she used it to love me. And when I went back home that day, I opened up the red packet. I found that there was money inside. $20 to be exact. And it told me that her gift was very intentional. Now, let me ask you guys a question. If today you would give me $1,000 or $100 to exchange for this $20, do you think I would do that? If you gave me $1,000 to exchange for the $20 that my grandma gave, do you think I would do that? If you gave me 100,000 to exchange for the $20 my grandma gave me, do you think I would do that? No. But if you gave me $1 million to exchange for the $20 my grandma gave me, do you think I would do that? Of course. It's $1 million. My grandma will understand, but you know what's the point? The point is none of you will give me $1 million. That's number one. The second point is this: for those of you who celebrate Chinese New Year, you know that this red packet means nothing. Once we are done removing the money that's inside, right, we almost throw away this red packet, right? And we use this money to spend on something that we want. Why is it now that this $20 means so much to me, together with the red packet, that I keep it in a safe and I don't remove it? It is in a special place in my house that I will never use. Why? How did something so meaningless suddenly become so meaningful? Let me tell you the reason why. It is because behind this story, behind this red packet, and behind this money is a story that I connect with so emotionally. I can see it very clearly, and it reminds me not to take my family for granted. Every single one of you here today are an expert of your own craft. It is your obligation to make your craft as meaningful to the audience you're serving as much as possible, so that just like me, they will take something that was seemingly not meaningful to become meaningful in their lives, keep it, and hopefully that thing that you impart into their lives will change their lives. Okay, guys? So this is the end of my presentation today. Thank you so much for letting me serve you. I really hope that you took back something valuable. But before we go, I'd like you to do this, right? In the chat room right now, before we go into the Q&A, I want you to share with us what is your best takeaway from today's session, right? Hit in the chat room right now by sharing with us what is the best takeaway from today's session. Let's do that right now. Let's go. What is your best takeaway from today's session? Hit it in the chat room right now. So Steve, very good. Cordero, STORMY, the acronyms. Right, Amanda, a confused mind will not take action. Absolutely, right. Carol, emotional connection. We know that we make big decisions when we are engaged emotionally, right? Right. Visualization when connecting to the heartstrings of your audience. Absolutely. What doesn't relate gets repelled. Yeah, absolutely, right? So keep those best learnings coming in, okay? Because it's actually more for you. When you do that, you're actually committing to that learning point, and you will not forget. So write that down in the chat room right now. So I'm going to be stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now, and I'm going to answer some of your questions that you guys have posted on the Q&A. All right. So anonymous attendee, I'm going to answer the second question first. All right. So what's your most notable experience of using storytelling to help you turn a really unfavorable situation around? Okay. So very recently, I encountered a very big stakeholder. In fact, it's a decision maker of a department, right? And when I first spoke to him, he kind of liked what I shared with him, but he said this: your price is too high. Your price is too high. So whenever somebody does that to you, right, it is a bit of objection handling skill. You have to make their assumption of price invalid, right? So the first way to do that is to say, you know what, Mr. A, what you just shared with me is something that everybody also says. Okay, so you just made that like, yeah, it's very common. I hear it all the time, right? However, so I shared with him, however, in the long run, many people have realized that they have saved this amount of money compared to that amount of money they spend with the second solution. All right, so that's the first thing I do to uh, to to crush the objection. Okay, the second thing I did was I shared with him what is the benefit to him when he works with me. So I sold him this idea on how he can also be one of my panel of speakers, because I I sense that he also likes to be in the forefront teaching and communicating. So I shared that with him. I sold him this story in his mind. I shared with him that in partnering me, this is what he can achieve, that he couldn't do on his own or with a different partner. And guess what? Suddenly, money is no longer an issue, and now we are partners. Yeah. So there's an example of using the story. Although it didn't follow the story framework, but it used the story principle. That's why I want everybody to keep remembering that the principle of storytelling is activated when we understand our audience very, very well. Then we can use it in part or in full to motivate them to take action in our favor. All right, so the next one is, what's the trick to tell or create stories in the shortest time possible when you're trying to get your point across? Sometimes you don't have time to prepare in advance during meeting, intense discussion. So to this question, right, that you may ask, I find that for me, storytelling has to be your way of life. If you do not often archive your stories, or when you look at movies, you don't identify learning points, right? And suddenly you want to pull out something from the sky, very difficult. So I would say, train your mind to see a learning point in movies that you watch, in short clips that you see on social media. And every time you do that, right, you're actually training your mind to notice things. So when you actually need that resource, that short story resource, right, is retrievable, easily retrievable. That's what I would recommend. Yeah, train your mind for it. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
Okay.
You're welcome, Didi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, I will open up to the audience if you for your question and answers. Meanwhile, David, I've got a few questions for you,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Is this applicable for an interview?
Yes, this is definitely applicable for interview, but I want everybody to remember, right, when you're using stories for in the interview, it has to be in your favor.
Mm.
It's not to impress the people, but to reinforce your authority in certain things. Like, for example, a very common question that employers like to ask is, share with me a scenario, or share with me how you have what are your thoughts about teamwork, right? Maybe because it's a highly political department, right, and they want to employ people who are uh, um, that 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 deploy the team spirit. So instead of just saying, I think that my values are very good, I love to work with people, I love and all these statements, right? Share a story about how you demonstrated a teamwork in your past experience. Yeah. So that is
Yeah.
better. So remember that whenever you use a story, it's always to reinforce credibility in what you say. Yeah.
Okay, that would be most apt actually. And there's another one. How do you use this? How do you use a story in business presentation?
Right. So business presentation stories, right, often come in different ways, right? Either number one, the most common one is reinforcing your credibility in the industry. So you share a brief story about who you work with, were their challenges, how do you help them transform, and what's the outcome. Very common. Okay. But the uncommon use of storytelling in business presentation is objection handling. When someone throws you an objection, how do you handle with stories? So stories as a way, remember when people throw you objections, right? You never counter the objection head on. Your thought is how to distinguish it like a fire extinguisher, extinguish it like a fire extinguisher by making it irrelevant. So one of the strategies of making it irrelevant is making it common. Like, oh, I've heard this before, right? What you're sharing with me is not uncommon, right? However, so you agree with them and then you pivot. So the pivoting part is where you include the story. So I will go like, you know what you just shared with me is common with the thousands of clients that I work with, right? And many of them, although having said this, they still went ahead with us because this was what their situation was. But we helped them, and because they were in this situation, these were some challenges that their business was going to experience, but we helped them see that it was still possible to overcome them, right? And this was the outcome that we got. What do you think? So it's very powerful when you use for objection handling. Yeah, but you must always diffuse it first. Diffuse by not arguing but agreeing. Yeah.
Okay, I think most of us, I think we are astounded actually, honestly speaking, to gather a lot of feedbacks and a lot of information that's about storytelling. I thought storytelling was just something that we practice among every one of us, but I didn't expect it to have so much is in depth. And when you use some quality stories to bring out that feeling, that see, do, and feel, and share it among your peers or sharing among even your customers and clients and things, I think it resonates well with them. I think I'm very honored to have you today with us, David, and I'm sure the rest of you would also feel the same. So, in order to thank him, can we have a clap, a Y, or one, or whatever on the chat just to say our gratefulness and thanks to David King? A round of applause. Yay!
Thank you, everybody.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys. Okay. And most importantly, I think I should take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for coming on board. And of course, I can't leave you without having a short support from you. That it would be the completing our survey. And with the survey, you have the access code right on screen. Um, you can see it on the screen. Okay, just give us a measure. Yes, there you are. You have a feedback on the left hand side, and you also have something that we definitely require, or we could I won't say expect, but maybe if you have the time, maybe you can come on board with us. How you can help us with in this program? You can have the volunteers on the QR code on our right. If you have time, please sign up for us. Do join us as a mentor, mentee, or volunteer your services with us. We welcome you with open arms. And for the next highly regarded topic, let me just continue with the next one. I think most parents here would definitely be looking forward. The title would be Tiger Parents Meets Purpose Driven Millennials. That would be happening on the 12th of 12th this year, and which is more suitable for most parents here. And then, what about the next webinar that's also coming up on the 23rd of December? That would be on the Happy Coaching System for Self Discovery. And for all this information, kindly go to our AIM website and do look up into the events page. You will see all the details in there. And lastly, I would extend my big, heartiest thank you to David, to each and everyone for coming and attending this event. Till then, stay safe, and we will see you in the next webinar. And thank you to all our coalition partners. Thank you. God bless. Bye.